Good day, everyone. Today I will be reporting the Chapter 13, The Age of Kings. The French Monarchy. Origins of France. In the Middle Ages, Charlemagne's weak hairs divided the Carolingian kingdom of the Franks. In 987, they proclaimed that the Duke of Paris, Hugh Capet, as the new king of France. The medieval Kingdom of France emerged from the western part of Charlemagne's Carolingian Empire, known as Francia, and achieved increasing prominence under the rule of the House of Capet. It is founded by the Hugh Capet in 987. France wins the 100 Years' War. As a new nation, France struggled to survive. Across the English Channel, the English king Edward III, who still owned lands in Normandy, through, thought he might as well grab the rest of France. In France's darkest hour, when everything seemed lost, a simple and religious peasant girl miraculously appeared and became the nation's savior. She was Joan of Arc, 1412 to 31, from Lorraine, France. In a few months, Joan and her troops liberated central France. The Dauphin was was crowned as King Charles VII as Reims Cathedral. The tide of war turned against the English invaders. France wins the 100 Years' War. 100 Years of War, intermittent armed conflict between England and France over territorial rights in the issue of succession of the French throne. So it began when Edward III invaded Flanders in 1337 in order to assert his claim to the French crown. The effects of the 100 Years' War. France regained almost the territories lost to England. The French feudal nobles and knights were wiped out in the battlefields of the war. The French monarchy emerged stronger than before. French nationalism was awaked due to the martyrdom of Joan of Arc and the French victories over the English invaders. The long hostility and suspicion between the French and English peoples spilled over into many other wars, even when they were allies. The effects of 100 Years' War. The war laid waste too much of France and caused enormous suffering. It virtually destroyed the feudal nobility and thereby brought about a new social order. So, by ending the land status as a power in the continent, it leads the England to expand the reach and the power at the sea. Absolute monarchy develops in France. Absolute monarchy grew in France and power sharing flourished. Absolute monarchy in France developed in several stages through the decline of the local parliaments of the Estates General and the strong policies of French rulers beginning with Cardinal Richelieu and King Louis XV. Absolute monarchy in France slowly emerged in the 16th century and became firmly established during the 17th rather. Absolute monarchy created it is the absolute monarchy is created in Europe, and the age of absolutism is usually though to begin with the reign of Louis XV, 1643 to 1715, and ends with the French Revolution in 1789. Food shortages and economic crisis led to the outbreak of the French Revolutions. The local parliaments disappear. In the beginning, the French king shared power with local parliaments, or the Estates General. The word parliament comes from the French parlement, or to talk. These parliaments were only informal meetings with representatives from the social classes or states, nobles, priests, and merchants. So, parliaments were only informal meetings with representatives from three social classes or estates: nobles, priests, and merchants. Local parliaments stopped meeting because many nobles were killed during the 100 Years' War. The people were, so after the 100 Years' War, ang people sa local parliaments kay busy sila sa repair sang mga damages sang 100 sang about sa 100 Years' War. So the Cardinal Richelieu's policies. Cardinal Richelieu 1624 to 42 became a regent of the new Bourbon King Louis XII, only a 10-year-old boy. Cardinal Richelieu's policies involved two primary goals: the centralization of power in France and opposition to the Habsburg dynasty. Richelieu's decision to suppress the influence of the feudal nobility and levy taxes targeted mostly at the commoners made him a hated figure among both the nobility and the peasantry. Louis XIV, the greatest monarch of France, King Louis XIV became the first absolute monarch of France 1643 to 1715. Louis XV was a classic example of an absolute monarch. He ruled with a pomp and pageantry, handsome, intelligent, and regal. He was very inch as a king. The king and his family lived there instead of Paris. To be away from any disturbances, Louis also encouraged nobles to live there, so he could watch them. Versailles became the center of French culture. The king invited plays, poetry, and baroque music to entertain them. From Versailles, French culture spread throughout Europe. Louis XV, the greatest monarch of France, is the best monarch. Louis believed that he was the only one responsible for governing France when he ruled from 1643 to 1715. Louis served as an excellent example of the absolute monarch who commanded complete loyalty and imposed his vision on his country without consideration of the consequences. Golden Age of French Culture. The long reign of Louis XV marked the golden age of the French culture. Under his patronage, French arts and literature bloomed. Baroque style has elaborate ornamentation and dramatic effects with bold following lines, soar, and sounds. Ballet and ballroom dancing started from the French court's passion for dancing and the performing arts. French culture was influenced by Celtic and Gallo-Roman cultures, as well as the Franks, a Germanic tribe. France was initially defined as the western area of Germany, known as Rhineland, but it later became to refer to a territory that was known as Gaul during the Iron Age and ancient Roman era. Collapse of France. King Louis XV dream was to make France the greatest power in Europe. He dreamed of extending France to its natural boundaries beyond its political boundaries. For 30 years, therefore, France was at war, at one time or another, with the Dutch, Sweden, England, Spain, and the German princes. At the Peace of Utrecht in 1713, They made a deal that the French and Spanish crowns would never be united, and Louis lost territories, but his grandson could become Philip V of Spain. A remarkable German assault on northwest Europe, known as the Battle of France, resulted in the capture and subjugation of not only France but their other countries, Luxembourg, the Netherlands, and the Belgium. Britain, the mother of parliaments. England, like France, became a nation in a kingdom with an inherited monarchy. After their union, England and Scotland became Great Britain. Today, Britain is known as the mother of parliaments and the cradle of parliamentary democracy. Early English history. Unlike France, Britain was a melting pot of many different tribes. The Celts from Central Europe originally settled the islands and introduced nature worship, or Druidism, and huge stone monuments, or Stonehenge. Celtic legends tell a story of Quen Boadicea, who led them in battle in 61 AD. During the Roman Empire, Julius Caesar invaded the islands and called it Britannia. In the 5th century, the Anglos and Saxons became from Germany and the islands became known Angloland. The nobles forced their kings to submit to them wishes because they had more wealth and knights than the kings. At first, the traditional rights of nobles were only customary or unwritten. The kings accepted an unwritten code of English common law or customary law. Therefore, English common law still forms part of today's legal system. In 1215, the English barons forced King John to sign the Magna Carta, or Great Charter, an important document of rights and liberties for people such as freedom of movement, right to trial, no taxation without consent, and no confiscation of property without compensation. In 1265, a separate parliamentary house for rich commoner merchants was added to the parliament of nobles and clergy. England under Tudors. Little England became a strong and powerful nation under the Tudor kings. Henry and his daughter Elizabeth, the first Tudor king was Henry VII, 1485 to 1509, who won a civil war with the nobles called the War of the Roses. The Tudor period was 1485 and 1603 in England and Wales and includes the Elizabeth period during the reign of Elizabeth I until 1603. The Tudor period coincides with the dynasty of the House of Tudor in England that began with the reign of Henry VII. The Tudor era witnessed the most sweeping religious changes in England since the arrival of Christianity, which affected every aspect of national life. The Reformation eventually transformed an entirely Catholic nation into a predominantly Protestant one. Tudor England was a farming society. England's Golden Age, Elizabeth I. The achievements of the Elizabethan age were as follows. First, the separation from Rome and the popes made England independent of the influence of the Roman Church. Second, the English defeated the Spanish armada sent by Philip II in 1588 and proved they would not be vanquished by invaders. Third, naval exploits by English naval heroes like Sir Francis Drake made England a powerful naval power. Fourth, English colonization of the New World by Sir Walter Raleigh and the first 13 colonies in America. started England as a colonial power. Fifth, development of English literature with William Shakespeare's plays and the writings of other English essayists and poets made of other English made the English proud of their history and culture. So, during this era, England experienced peace and prosperity while the arts flourished. It is an era of economic great development. Pioneer English Bible and Christians in America. Elizabeth's nephew James I united the Scottish and English thrones, 1603 to 1625. Thereafter, England became Pon- Great Britain. James I was a scholar and articulated the philosophy on the divine right of kings, anticipating Louis the 15th in time. Kings are called gods, he stated, because they sit upon God's throne on earth. The Puritan Revolution, 1542 to 49. King Charles I, 1625 to 49, like his father James, believed in the divine right of kings. More issues between him and Parliament ended up in his tragic impeachment, beheading, and the takeover of the government by the Puritans led by Oliver Cromwell in 1653. Puritanism, a religious reform movement in the late 16th and 17th century that sought to purify the Church of England of remnants of the Roman Catholic popery that the Puritans claimed had been retained after the religious settlement reached early in the reign of Queen Elizabeth I. Restoration of monarchy. After the Puritan Revolution and the death of Cromwell, the people wanted to return to the royal tradition, which they were more comfortable. In May 1688, the monarchy was restored with the return of Charles II, who was succeeded by his son James II. The three legal traditions are considered as milestone in democracy and world history. First, the customary English laws. Two, second, the Magna Carta of 1215, and the third, the Bill of Rights of 1689. The restoration of the monarchy in England in 1660, he marked the return of Charles II as king, 1660 to 85. Following the period of Oliver Cromwell's Commonwealth, the bishops were restored to Parliament, which established a strict Anglican orthodoxy. Significance of the Glorious Revolution of 1688 to 89. The Glorious Revolution of 1688 to 89 was a highly significant event in world history. Firstly, it marked the triumph of parliamentary democracy over absolute monarchy. Secondly, it canceled the divine rights of kings. Thirdly, it marked the triumph of the political theory of social contract that rulers can only rule with the consent of the governed people. And finally, the Glorious Revolution gave historical inspiration to the American and French revolutions at the end of the 18th century. British political innovations. Many British political innovations spread the modern governments as follows. First, the parliamentary democracy. Second, the customary law is as good as written law. Three, a written Bill of Rights guarantees the freedom and rights of citizens. Fourth, the will of the people is supreme. Fifth, a king is only the symbolic head of state. Sixth, a prime minister is head of government. Seven, the prime minister need a cabinet of ministers. 8. Political parties select the representatives of the people. And 9. The government must ask the consent of the people for any major action. Britain, world's greatest power in the 18th century. Significantly, a Christian revival led by John Wesley 1703 to 91 and the other evangelists helped Britain to avoid the turmoil of the Bloody Revolution, similar to that which destroyed France during the French Revolution. So the Industrial Revolution was born in Britain in the 1700s and allowed huge economic growth, which brought even more money in allowing them to become still more powerful economically, politically, and militarily in the process. Thank you and God bless.